Mr. Unnikrishnan, good to have you on the show. Good morning. It seems that the sector, was already at a tough time. And now you've got this double whammy coming in because of the COVID pandemic and now the lockdown and then the lockdown extension as well. When do you really materially see things picking up? Because like the MHA just yesterday approved a phased-wise lifting of the lockdown come April 20th. Do you think that can perhaps resurrect and, try and buffer up things a little bit at least?
One is related to new business flowing in, and the second related to ongoing projects getting continued. So as far as new order conclusions are concerned, it will take a much longer period of time where the current capacities will get utilized and the owners of companies, promoters, CEOs would believe that they need to be enhancing capacity. There are certain sectors where there will be quick need for capacity like drug and pharma, food processing, food, dairy. Those areas I'm sure will pick up also faster. However, when it comes to shutdown of the current sites where construction of the projects are going, like a boiler plant, power plant, captive power plant, water treatment plant, all of them, it is shut down in line with the government's requirement when the shutdown got invoked on the 23rd. But for essential services oriented projects, we were allowed to be at least working at the marginal level. But with the current lifting from 20th onwards, we are expecting that most of the sites which are in those 400 plus districts where there are no COVID cases and which are in rural areas, most of the projects are in rural areas, the construction work will get restarted. But the biggest challenge we'll be facing in that is, number one is availability of labor. The reverse migration which has happened as lockdown started, or maybe prior to that itself, people were aware of it. So getting workmen to work at the sites and project sites, and even for factories, contract workers, is going to be the biggest challenge all of us are going to face at the first level. And at the second level, the liquidity. At the end of the day, we do the work for a month and wait for the customer to make the payment, from which we'll have to make payments to suppliers. A good part of them are MSMEs, and to the workmen, site workmen who are through the contractors. So there, unless there is a liquidity support available to the market, which is yet to be coming from the government so far, the pace of recovery of even ongoing projects could be a little difficult. I stop here to ask me further questions.
Right. Wanted to understand about, in greater detail, Mr. Unnikrishnan, about order conclusions for fresh capacity creation. Now at a complete standstill, it seems, for the sector. What about orders getting concluded prior to the outbreak? And, are they not being confirmed? Because I'm guessing that clients would be holding back on advances to be paid.
Well, we have been in touch with maybe 27,000 of our customers in India. Those who got small to big to regular orders, equivalent or all of that. Very happy to say that 84% of them will want to continue with the orders which they have placed. And others are not telling they're cancelling it. The cancellations aren't too high, Aisha, at this point of time. Because nobody is believing that Corona is going to leave us immediately and life is going to continue along with Corona for some time. And how to do that is a current question which we need to be answering. So I'm not unduly worried about order cancellations, unlike when we faced a crisis in 2008. It's more economic in nature. Currently, it is a supply side disruption than a demand side disruption. Though demand is temporarily disrupted, India would have been on a recovery path in the current year, but that is impacted by this. So that is my first surmise on that. Now, fresh orders being concluded, certainly nobody will want to place an order immediately, though we are getting some orders in the first, let's say, 14, 15 days of the month of April. Not that the entire order book had been dry. There are sectors where they do believe that most of the capital goods projects can be taking anywhere from a minimum 3 to 4 months for a baby boiler to 18 to 24 month period of time. So there are people who are anticipating a recovery in the H2 in some side, the current year H2, or some of them anticipating even the next financial year. We'll certainly discuss and conclude orders. Now, will they be able to initiate the projects? I agree with you, because unless they see their own cash flows becoming surplus to support and the banking system able to support through the debt portion, you will certainly have to wait for, I would presume that we are passing through a very volatile time, at least for 2 quarters before any one of us can tell with absolute confirmation in the mind that things are going to happen like this. All what is being spoken by everybody is speculative more in nature. That's my opinion.
Right. Also wanted to understand what really is happening with working capital requirements, given that liquidity must be tight in any case, and not just for you, but for all players within the industry.
Absolutely right. We are one of the lucky companies, I would say, that I don't have a debt. Thermax doesn't have, we're a zero debt company. We have a fairly good treasury available. So we should be able to navigate through this situation better than many other companies. However, I know about my colleagues and my suppliers, more importantly. In capital goods industry, all the larger companies depend a lot on MSMEs, who are the component suppliers, fabricators who make a lot more of our components, and they are in absolute distress. And for them, it is a double whammy. Like we mentioned earlier, it's they have to be waiting for the prime owner of the project paying to the main contractor like us or a companies like us, who in turn will have to pay to them, and then their labor has got to be taken care of. So it's a 4 level. So in that, most of them are under distress. And to be precise, many of them paid salaries for the work of March, despite the fact that the work was suspended for almost the last maybe 10 days of the month. Current month, how will they pay salaries to the labor in MSME? I don't think any one of them will have financial sufficiency to do that way. So we are all in touch with the government to ensure that multiple things are done to support them. For example, the government, the Provident Fund Commission has already announced for the next 3 months, the government of India will pay the Provident Fund for employees drawing a basic salary less than 15,000 rupees. And of course, the number of people working in the company should not be more than 100, which we're trying to tell them. MSME today can have a couple of hundred. So that's the first thing come in. We are demanding from the government a financial package for the MSMEs where they will get additional working capital after sealing the current numbers and provide a moratorium for repayment of loans, at least for a period of 6 months. Unless we support, because capital goods industry, 80 to 85% of the entire top line comes from the MSMEs. And maybe 90 plus of the people who are employed in the industry are in the MSMEs. Unless they come out of the problem and with a lot of support from the government and all of us, larger companies, then the industry will be crippled. All of us are seized upon this particular situation and we are supporting in every possible way. And we need the government also to come forward to support them.
Sure. Also wanted to understand, I know these are just numbers right now and the situation is way more grave than that. But how much could be the hit when it comes to, say, your order book, the fresh orders coming in, or for that matter, if the lockdown does continue to persist, not just in India, but other parts of the world as well? How constrained do you think would be execution, both for domestic as well as international markets?
In the order intake, there are multiple scenarios being worked out by all of us based on when will the lockdown get lifted in partial way. And most important, Aisha, is finding out the cure for it, a medicine to be invented, created where it can cure coronavirus. And second is a vaccine, which to my best knowledge, the medicine may be ready in 9 to 12 month period of time, and a vaccine can be at 12 to 18 month period of time. So unless we are able to have both of this coming in, anybody making a prediction can only be his own analytical mind giving an answer for it. So at the worst scenario, the order intake for those who are in the non-infrastructure oriented area, which means the industrial B2B equivalent of capital goods companies, can be as low as maybe a 30 to 40% hit on the overall order intake in comparison to the previous year. Whereas for those who are in the infra area, road building, bridge building, tower building, railway track building, there the projects will be led by the governments in any country. So there every country will ensure that to keep the jobs on, projects will be announced and funded even by borrowing. So those who are dependent on infrastructure predominantly, and government contracts, I think they should expect a drop of not more than 10 to 20%. So whereas industry to industry are the areas where you will find this difficulty of fresh orders coming in, whether it is domestic or international. Now, executing the current orders and further orders, I'm sure there will be mechanisms. It will not be the same way we execute it. For example, when we are going to be restarting our factories, the kind of sanitization that we're going to be doing for the entire manufacturing facility, the distancing between work centers, all this is going to be making a major difference. So we're not going to be operating the way you operated till maybe 23rd of March. Maybe in the same factory, 100% people, if 100 people were working, the number of people who can be accommodated to work with the same distancing done will come down by almost maybe 1/3, or in some cases even 50%, depending upon the layout of the factory. So readjustment, refurbishment for the factory layout, a gap to be provided of an hour between two shifts where entire workplace gets sanitized, and similarly to ensure that everybody who enters is not coming with infection. So the process and standard operating procedure to run a company is going to be changing. Some of us are working with the government to ensure that the new system that is getting created is sufficient enough to ensure that the infections don't get into the factory. And in the unlikely event of somebody coming in infected and who infects somebody more in the company, do you shut down the entire factory, or what are the preventive measures to be taken? So SOPs are getting made to work with safety of workmen, because first of all of us should be caring for human life. Then comes economy. That's even people like us believe, our company believes that, and I'm sure all of us in the industry also will believe the same way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, priorities have completely changed post the outbreak. But good to have you on the show, Mr. Unnikrishnan, as always. And thanks much for really highlighting what the capital goods industry, and in particular Thermax, is facing right now. Still in recovery mode. We've recovered somewhat, but unable to push really ahead of that 89.20, 89.30 odd zone. Breadth, though, has recovered. IT still under pressure.